morning, everybody. Welcome to the panel. Welcome back. Hope you all had a great rest. Great to see. I think we had about 25 of us out on the run this morning. Where were the rest of you? Dave Cundy, I didn't see you there. Got an excuse that your hotel was too far away. I'm not sure that that's a good enough excuse, but hopefully you ran anyway along the beautiful Singapore River where you are. Yeah? No. In a word, no. Folks, it's wonderful to be back and excited to talk about a sport that is, I guess, become my second sport as I've got a little bit older and my knees have become a bit more dodgy. I'm now more of a cyclist than I am a runner. Can't say I'm a triathlete, but I think it's interesting to see how cycling and triathlon formats have evolved and continue to evolve to, I think, address markets, to address emerging markets. And obviously, in running and even in obstacle and other elements of mass, we see evolution happening, and that's a way of, I believe, engaging with participants, engaging with brands, engaging with governments. And I'd love to get a sense from each of you, maybe starting with Beth at the far end, in terms of what's driven OC Sports to innovate and change. Is it driven by consumer demand? Is it driven by sponsors wanting something, governments wanting something? You're a great tourism property for what you do, and that's certainly something about cycling. Or is it kind of like, we have a great idea, let's just do it and hope that it works, or maybe a bit of all?
I think you just answered the question for me there, Chris. Yeah, it's a bit of everything, really. I think we at OC Sport, we're really passionate about what we do, certainly. We're all sports people, we all love our product, and we're all continuously looking for the way in which to keep it exciting and fresh, not just for our consumers, but also for us as well. And I think, yeah, we're a great tourism product, we're a great, way for people to travel and see the world. And certainly what we're seeing in the cycling market at the moment is that we will always have a core market for the Alps, for the Pyrenees, the iconic cycling destinations, but people want to travel now with sport. And the more that people travel, the more of a bigger market that we can have, and we're talking about our international riders. And then actually we start to look at new destinations and we see there's people here that want this product too. They want a premium service, they want to be really well looked after, and we can deliver that. And yeah, join the cycling revolution in new markets.
And so how's that evolved from a format perspective? So, HODGE, and I never quite get the pronunciation right.
No, me.
Yeah. HODGE, Alps, Pyrenees, massive endurance, huge commitment from a time and a training perspective. As you move that into other markets, you've got some shorter formats. Talk us through that a little bit in terms of how you've evolved what's obviously a successful core and how you've adapted that, please.
Yeah, completely. I mean, we see that the cycling market, certainly in Asia, is quite behind what it is in Europe, certainly on the scale perspective. We've created a shorter format, so we've gone from a 7-day, ultra-tough, hardest of the hardest, brought that down to a 3-day. Does it mean it's any easier? Not so much, but it's easier to manage in your mind, But that started in Europe. But actually what we're finding is that sort of proposition here in Asia is really attractive. And also just from a practicality point of view, finding a 7-day course to manage in some new destinations is actually quite complicated. To find a 3-day version, which is more bite-sized, easier to manage, easier on the destination itself, that's become really successful.
So that's easier for you as an organiser. I'm guessing that maybe in what seems to be our increasingly time-poor world, that's maybe also consumer-driven. Consumers telling you we can't afford to be away for 7 days, but we'd love to come for 3 days? Yeah,
completely. It's not only attracting new riders, but it's also attracting our alumni. So they may have done a 7-day, but then they think, okay, 3 days, we do a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I only need to take 1 day off, I can travel back on a Sunday evening, it's all very easy. It's also really attractive for our sponsors, because what it means is that we end up doing more events.
And I'm guessing the same applies for sponsors as well. I mean, if you're doing an event like that, you activate around it. A 7-day activation is a big impact on a sponsor as opposed to a 3-day activation.
Yeah, completely. But I think the main thing is that we can do more events at a quicker speed. I mean, we started 2011 with 1 event, 7 days. In 2019, we will have 13 events worldwide, and that includes the Middle East, Central America. and hopefully Asia as well.
Wow, fantastic! Congratulations.
Thank you.
Elvin, moving along to you in the triathlon space, and you know, made in Singapore, expanded to the region. Would love to hear what's driven that. What's driven the move out of Singapore? How have you had to adapt formats to Thailand, for example? Is it a different market? Has it meant that you've had to change your format, or have you taken the Singapore recipe and just replicated it in Thailand?
Yeah, so thanks, Chris. I think that's a very good question. I think when we started off Trifecta, for example, in Singapore, we started off an idea, I think with a key purpose to bring triathlon to everyone, right? So it's no rocket science. We broke up triathlon into 4 parts: a swimming event, a cycling event, a running event, and a triathlon event. So we wanted to motivate people to get into the sport of multi-sport event. So get them familiar with cycling, get into a little bit of duathlon, and then move on to triathlon. That was the key milestone that we go through in Singapore. But fast forwarding on to 2016, when we decided, why not we take Trifecta into the region? We started off Thailand. My God, that must be the tough decision. Thailand's a really tough, we'll smack with a couple of challenges. That includes the unfortunate passing of the king, will led to postponements and stuff. But going back into the positive side, I think there are a lot of learnings into the triathlon space within a mature market like in Thailand. Right, there are many events like the Laguna Phuket Triathlon, there will be the Ironmans, and many events there. And what we found missing is we have the same group of people doing triathlon all around, about 4,000 people in Thailand. We wanted to come in and bring that number to 5,000 athletes, 6,000 athletes, and grow the community of triathlon. So what we did was to make triathlon more accessible for everyone. We broke down triathlon into shorter distance. We started off with duathlons. We kept the core standard with the ITU standard, with the Olympic distance, and with the longer distance triathlon. And this is pure based of insights with our consumers, with the data that we have for 10 years, to make sure that people, when they travel, they just want to go do a 30-minute race. Right, they want to make sure that they have a good race, they challenge themselves, and they enjoy what's new about the destination. So, and probably with the learnings in Thailand we had today, we are proud to bring about Trifecta into new 7 different countries in 2019. I was unfortunate not being here yesterday. I was in Malaysia. I think there's a little bit of tension in Malaysia at the moment, but we're launching Trifecta in Johor with a multi-sport concept, with short course relay concept, and also following on with the Olympic distance triathlon that is suited for the triathlon community today. So moving to your question, Chris, I think the learnings that we take in each market, we need to adapt into venues, the demand of the majority of the market itself, and also where the interest lies, where's the trend today. So thank you.
And so you spoke about growing that market from 4,000 to 5,000 in Thailand. A year in, how is that happening? Is it being driven locally, or I guess the beauty as you move across the region, you're driving that tourism property as well, much like these guys do. And we're going to get to MATTHE in a moment, the massive influx of people that comes into Bintan for Tour de Bintan. Are you finding that starting to happen, or the growth is coming within the local market?
I always go with start with the 80-20 rule. So 80% of that will have to be local market growth. We need to understand where the barriers to entry of the sport is, whether it's education, whether it's training, whether it's accessibility to a shorter course races platform to grow into the sport. I think that Roman and the team have an amazing Tri-Dash community in Thailand that helps to bring people into the sport too. I think bringing the community together, growing that number from 4,000 to 5,000 must be the key focus to keep this sport sustainable within the market.
Great, thank you. MATTHE, moving to you. So you're across kind of all 3 of the verticals, cycling, Tour de Bintan, other parts of it, very successful 70.3 and a big duathlon. How do the 3 of those interplay with each other? Are you finding that you have pretty much the same core of people that do all of them, or are they very segmented?
No, they are a bit segmented, but you see a change in the market in the sense that people are not doing just one sport anymore. As you see, I think you've heard this before, but the attention span of people is getting shorter. They need new inspirations all the time. You need to keep things fresh to keep attracting them and to come to your events. So we do see similar athletes sometimes doing the same events next to core cyclists, core triathletes. So for example, we do have a triathlon series as well. And for us, in a relatively mature market, and to keep growing, which we manage, is we have to encourage every time new people to come into the sports. And for that, we have to tweak the formats, keep it fresh, keep them coming in. And I think sports, especially in more mature markets in Asia, like Singapore, Malaysia, and you mentioned Thailand is getting mature as well. To be able to attract these people, you need to keep them interested and give them reasons to come back. And our event formats are continually developing, both to attract the participants, but also in the interest of our stakeholders. We have events in Indonesia, and these are destination events. And of course, one big motivation, they are supporting us, so we need to deliver to them their objectives in terms of the economic impact and the number of people that come and visit their country. Did it answer the question?
Yeah, no, I think that was great. And I mean, the tourism impact one, I think, is what lends itself to this industry generally, but particularly cycling and triathlon, because you can cover so much of the landscape. I mean, you guys have been incredibly successful in terms of literally creating a destination. When MetaSport went into Bintan, you identified the opportunity. It obviously has its limitations, but had some wonderful experiences participating in Tour de Bintan over a number of years. Damn tough, incredibly hot, but a wonderful experience. And the way that you've kind of dealt with the limitations, so limited ferries, lack of hotels, by adding the Grand Fondo. And I think it'd be interesting maybe to share that with the audience, that you kind of got, if I'm right, you got to saturation in the Tour de Bintan. You didn't have enough hotel rooms to be able to grow that part of it. So you put on a one-day Grand Fondo, you laid on some extra ferries, people could go down for the day. You were addressing a venue limitation, but I think you were also addressing a demand from consumers. So which of those kind of came first? Were the consumers coming to you saying, I don't want to do 3 days, it's too tough, I'm exhausted, or 3 stages, it's too tough? Or you kind of like, hey, the venue's limited, let's see what we can do to bring more people? What was cart and what was horse there?
Interesting question, actually. Well, after every event, we do very thorough reviews, and we really spend a lot of time on detail to see what is driving the event for people to come down. And indeed, we've started most of our events ourselves. That was before the entry of the global brands coming to Asia, which is a more current development with HODGE coming, Ironman. Ironman was not existent when we started triathlon in the region. We've now UCI from the World Series. And we, at a certain point with that cycling event, particularly, we reached a moment where we had to bring in new elements to keep it growing. There are some limitations at that specific venue, but we also saw to grow, we had to, because the cycling scene is growing, but the level is nothing compared to mature markets like Europe or the US. So we had to appeal to a less advanced cycling community. And I think that was very much the trigger, actually, not necessarily limitations. So we introduced shorter distances, and also for people that, then maybe not so crazy about the sport to want to spend the whole weekend away. So we gave them day trip opportunities. And that way we've been continued to grow, and then we took on, the next step was then to take on the UCI from the World Series license. Again, that drove a different kind of cyclist altogether, and helps it keep it fresh as well. They follow a little bit similar format as Ironman with qualification for World Championships. So every year there's a new opportunity to qualify, which helps for retention.
So that's an interesting one that I'd like to pick up on. So we've got 3 people on the panel. One who has properties that are licensed to global brands, and if I'm right, you're both completely independent. So I'm guessing you work with UCI to a degree, but you're not paying license fees. You're not following those. I'm interested in what that kind of did for your business and your brand. So you built MetaSport, you laid a foundation, it then became an Ironman event. You built Tour de Bintan, you spoke about it being UCI. Did that catapult you? Obviously you pay license fees, you have, and maybe you need to be a bit politically correct about this because there's people in the room here. I see Thibaut from Ironman here, be careful what you say. Lock your ears, Thibaut. But, is it, in a nutshell, is it worth it?
We review this, of course, on a regular basis. Of course, when they raise the license fees again, then we have to review that. But no, of course, we need to see what it brings and what we have to pay for it. And I think that's in every business decision that you make. Obviously, it made sense to us. That's why we did it. It's proven very beneficial to the events at the current moment. They kept growing, which is quite unique for events of this age and in the market that we are. So at the moment, it's definitely working. And once we see that there's a need for a new impulse, we will look at what the opportunities are and whether then it's worth continuing with the UCI license or the Ironman license and see what are the next developments in the market. Yeah.
So, have we by any chance got another mic there, please, Sean?
Yeah, just on the flip side, because 2018, HODGE started to license. So we're on the other side now. We have now sold franchises into Oman and Mexico, which was an amazing learning experience with not much sleep, I might add. But just to say, from the point of view of us selling a license, we need that local partner, the person that buys a license from us, just as much as they need us. And that's super important. There's no way that we could operate in Mexico with the limitations of the team that we've got. We don't have the local knowledge, we don't have the access to the same resources, we don't have the government connections. And yes, we've set up our own events in new markets that are unknown to us, Norway, North America. But definitely in more challenging environments such as Mexico and Oman, we need those local people on the ground. So, we are selling a product at the end of the day. It is a completely new revenue stream for us. We need it to survive. We need it to achieve our global ambitions. But it's definitely a model that we find that if we find the right partner, we've got a good relationship and hopefully we respect each other and deliver a great product at the end of the day.
I think that's, keep going ahead.
So interesting element too, because we see a lot of global brands, L'Etape, HODGE, Ironman, Super League, new edition coming to Singapore next year. So all these events coming in, it doesn't mean necessarily that these brands are known in Asia. When we started the long distance triathlon, we considered Ironman, but at the time they didn't have any impact in the Asian market. So it's true that the partner is very important with the local knowledge, understanding the local mindset, and they're building the brand as much as they are actually taking the brand in the regional market.
Absolutely. I think we need to look at when we look at we did license a couple of brands, not within the cycling space. We did a couple of fun runs in the US. We brought it to Thailand. When I look at licensing a product, I think it's really about the value that the brand brings to the table. It has to be purely commercial because we don't own the brand. It has to make sense to the sponsors. It has to make sense to the city. It has to make sense to the people wanting the product itself. Similar to BETH, I think when we started off licensing Trifecta into the market, we faced similar challenge. I think we're going to have a coffee talk after this. I guess the complexity of the market, is the market ready for this product? Do they know this product as well? I guess people from China, about the struggles that Ironman have in China. I hear a couple of stories. I love to validate some of these rumors that we have today. But when we got to do the first Trifecta in China, we thought of licensing a product into a local partner. We did the study for 2 years itself. In the end, we decided to set up a full team in China. We set up an whole office in Shanghai, operated the event, managed government relationships, set up the full structure there, on the sheer fact that our brand couldn't bring enough value back to the local partner commercially so that they could make the right money. So licensing for us in China was not ready. On the flip side of it, Indonesia, into the Philippines, we have successful licensing model to local partners. So where our brand could deliver more value to our partners there. So that's where we look at it.
That's a great, interesting insights. I just ran a workshop before this on the opportunities and challenges of business in Asia, and the key point I kept making: local partner, local partner, local partner. You spoke about deciding whether a market's ready for it. How do you do that? I mean, is it kind of suck your thumb and put it in the air and see how it feels, or can you do some research to say, how do you take, and maybe you can, share some stories of it worked in this market, it didn't work in this market, and this is why. I mean, we've every one of us in the room, I think if we're honest, we've had failings and we learn best from the failings. So maybe you want to give us an example of where it didn't work and why.
I think Paul right there will know why it didn't work. To be honest, when we started off, Trifecta in Singapore was very locally based. And taking it to Thailand for our first market, it was stuck in the tub, right? I wanted to do it. I believe the market is ready. I went in, appointed a local partner that's pretty reputable, connected, got me a venue, done. Through the whole journey was really painful, right? Trying to educate the person to understand our brand, execute the right standards, for example, safety. Oh, we don't need this, we don't need this. It's totally not acceptable in brand building mode, right? So what we do is we've gone through that learning and took that learning to the next level when we go and found a new local partner. And how we do that, I think a couple of, it's a journey. There's a development phase where we do consumer insights studies with a partner. So we go through an in-depth study of the size of price in the market, what kind of sponsorship level. I think that drives at least 60% of the top line revenue that covers the cost of the event. Understanding the market, where are the revenue streams coming in, going through the planning cycle with them, making sure that they understand the brand. It's a long-term commitment in terms of partnership. It's not a one-night stand in that way, right? So going through that phase to identify the right local partner, making sure that they hit the first milestone and deliver something that they can see in the future, right? So I think that's fundamental in the way we look at it, right? So taking that learning, we have took Thailand into Malaysia. We made some mistakes in Malaysia too. Too much trusting the local partner. The event was horrific, right? I wanted to come to the event enjoying a couple of champagnes, but we ended up being a marshal on the street because there weren't enough barriers and traffic was coming along when people were cycling. It was totally unacceptable from a safety perspective. So we took all this to make sure that we model in to make sure that we costed in commercially, educating the local people and delivering the event consistently as we go forward. So I guess I won't take up too much of the panel time, but it's time for coffee where we want to understand all the different learnings that we have in different markets. But the point I was trying to make is every single market is different in Asia. It's highly complex. We need to really understand the maturity of, number one, the local partner, whether they have the right mindset. Secondly, the consumer behavior, whether they expect full road closure. I have never expected 800 volunteers for a 300 people event that I did in China. 800 volunteers. I had a cultural shock, but the event was beautiful, perfect, seamless. And that's how the communists won it. I'm not sure how many Chinese right here, but it was a pure culture shock for me. But I guess that's the way of working in China, if those of you want to enter the China market. Thank you.
Fantastic, I'm sure many great learnings and many funny stories. So the title of the panel, and we've got another 5 or 6 minutes, is It's More Than the Bike. We've spoken about kind of formats on the bike and how it's evolved. What about the off-the-bike stuff? How's that evolved? Your social interaction, the whole festival, what happens around your events? How's that evolved, and how do you see it evolving?
Yeah, I mean, this is the good stuff. This is the juicy, what's new, what are people doing when they're not at our events? You know, this is the key moment. We need to talk to these riders, you know, 365 days a year. There's some really interesting things going on in cycling at the moment. A lot of it is driven by virtual reality. You know, recently this week, British Cycling announced that they're going to find the next top cyclists in the UK by using the interactive platform Zwift. Now, if this is what the riders are doing, then we need to talk to them there. You know, it's no good going and hanging out at the coffee shop at 10 a.m. on a Saturday morning in freezing cold Richmond Park in London. You know, if they're all at home, keeping warm and dry, then we need to be there too. So I think, you know, it's all about, of course, listening to your consumer, but also sometimes it's about, can we put ourselves out there and create the next trend? So something we're looking at, and not just because it's my complete obsession, is do we do a Hope Route gravel event, for example? You know, do we do something completely different? You know, this year, World Tour team, Education First APAC, announced that they would be putting their pro riders into all sorts of different disciplines. So is it time for us to start thinking, we'll always have our core product on the road, but actually, do we need to look at what people, you know, are getting excited about? The brands are getting excited about it. You know, if you look at Cannondale now, which is a big US bike brand, most of their stuff on their website is all about adventure, off-road, exploring, seeing things. It's about keeping people happy for their Instagram feeds at the end of the day. So can we answer to some of that, or do we just stay where we are? I don't know. It's an exciting time, and hopefully we can deliver on some of it, yeah?
Yeah, and obviously lots of evolution. I mean, I read that story as well about British Cycling. So if British Cycling can look for the next star, can you maybe have Hope Route qualifying in the virtual space? And that guarantees places, and you know, many people have sold out events, and we heard about virtual marathons, 400 people I think running New York Marathon virtually and getting their medals. It's undeniably a space that we're heading to. Elvin, how about you? What about the off-the-bike part of it?
I think there's two parts of it when I look at this off-the-bike festival. When we create something, one, to be honest, it has to be commercially driven with sponsors, looking at where the audience are. When we look at our sport itself, it's very niche. We're not a marathon at 50,000 runners. We are there with the family. We want to make sure the family attends the event. We want to make sure that the friends and bring on the pets. All sorts of things, to make it a real experience for everyone to hang around, right? I've been to many races where people just come and race and they leave right there. I don't think commercially the sponsors like that. They want them to hang around, and the way around that is to create something that means something to them, whether it's food. I think food is always something that is interesting, whether it's an innovative concept like a virtual challenge or a fitness challenge that we create. But basically understanding what kind of activities our consumer likes that will keep them and entertain them when they're on site. The other part of the element that we look at creating a festival is how do we bring people more into the sport, getting them to come and just enjoy the atmosphere, whether it's a music concert that we put out a nice, good-looking DJ spinning some nice tracks, or we've done that, right? We've done so many of that. Or something like a little kids challenge, right? We tied up with a balancing bike brand called Strider. We had a 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old mini duathlon challenge for 2-year-olds. So keeping them entertained so that people who are not racing in Trifecta actually brought their kids coming in to do a 2-year-old challenge. So they actually come in and experience the whole event. So getting more people into the sport. So two elements there from when we look at it, when we create a festival, commercially driven, and back to our purpose, bringing more people into the sport.
Great, thank you. Meta, you've got about a minute, but if you need another 30 seconds, give it a go. What about you guys, off the bike stuff?
Well, we are very much about experiences when we do our events. I think that's what makes people coming back, and I think that is honestly what I think is a little bit lacking still at the virtual experience. So I see it very much as a complementary. There's definitely space for it because people can't just travel around all the time. But I think there's still, personally, I think there's still nothing like crossing the finish line with a crowd, going through it, the elements, sharing your experience with your friends and mates on the spot, and staying on, and the whole festival experience that Elvin mentioned as well. We're very much focused on this. So in that respect, I think that's not going to change. That's still going to be a focus for us, and let's see what happens in the other spaces. Yeah.
Fantastic, thank you. So I think in summary, evolving based on consumer demand, sometimes based on limitations, based on new cultures. The key that I think we unanimously agree on is a local partner wherever you're taking that, whether it's a short concept or a long concept. The whole 360 experience, whether that's 365 days, whether that's virtual, whether it's on the bike, off the bike, it's an integrated experience and the opportunity for engagement, whether it be cycling, whether it be triathlon, whether it be triathlon and duathlon and cycling. But ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking Beth, Elvin and Matte. Thank you very much.